Hey y'all, this is Marley K. Hope y'all are well. I want to do a BRICS break so that we can talk about the things that are going on the continent, and they tie into what's happening here. I just think all these things, spiritually and naturally, are connected. The gradual dismantling, the destruction of lands and ways of life, the economic collapse, not just here, but all over the globe, because everybody sees the writing is on the wall. And you see all these nations are anti-Gentile nations now. So, whether or not we realize it, a lot of what's happening in the world is going to impact us directly, which is why I keep my finger on the pulse, because I want to know, what I need to do to position myself so that I don't fall so hard and so that I'm not caught off guard and unaware. All right. So with that said, I got a couple of stories that I'm going to share with you. And at the end, I'm going to share a video with you so that you will understand where we are in the collapse. These are data points. I don't want you to be fearful. It's just information that you need to know so that you can understand what's happening in other places that our media isn't telling us, that our people aren't talking about. But they are important to us because we don't produce anything, we don't make anything, we don't grow anything, we don't have nothing. We're consumers. We're a nation of consumers, and as a group of people or a nation within a nation, we are consumers. We don't have nothing. We work for other people. Um, and because we live outside of the law, statutes, and commandments, the way that the Most High desired for us to live, in part because we've been in captivity, we're going to be impacted by whatever happens in some way, shape, or form. Now, I believe those of us who are awakened will be protected, but I don't by any means think we're going to be so protected that we don't experience something. I believe He's given us the wisdom to understand what's coming and to be proactive instead of reactive. And because we are one of the poorest groups in this country, it takes us longer to prepare. You may be a little more well off than some others, including myself, because by no means I'm not well off, but I'm awakened enough that I know, because I'm at the bottom, that I have to work a little harder and a little longer to do with what some other people have, because they're working with ill-gotten gains. I'll just say that. Or because they've worked in concert with the beast system and were able to benefit from it. So it allows them a little cushion that a lot of us don't have because we didn't choose that route. So with that said, let's get into these stories. Benzinga. This story came out on August the 23rd, 2023. It says how China and South Africa usher in golden era for bilateral ties. Notice who's not included in the tying, the Gentile nations. The West is out, America is out, Canada is out. So spiritually, I think the Most High is saying something to the people. Naturally, it's a slap in the face. It just shows you that the realigning of the global order is happening right before our eyes. We're getting to see it. So this says, with a brotherly and camaraderie friendship, China and South Africa, the world's two major developing countries, are set to see their bilateral relations taking a step further with more fruitful cooperation in a golden era as the leaders of both countries met in Pretoria on Tuesday. During this meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Xi called the fruits of bilateral cooperation in the past decade, including the building of Chinese car maker BAIC Group's South Africa plant and establishment of the Confucius Institute at Durban University of Technology in 2013, saying that he is pleased to see the progress South Africa has achieved in national development. Now, I just feel the need to say this because I don't want people to think, oh, she's rooting for anybody in particular. I understand all the kings of the earth are going to give their power to the beast. I know this. So I don't have a dog in the fight at all. I'm not rooting for nobody. I'm not rooting for the dragon. I'm not rooting for the bear. I'm not rooting for the eagle. I ain't rooting for no flag. I'm rooting for Yasharel and the Most High. That's all I'm rooting for. And the three Gentiles that's cleaving unto us. That's all. So don't get it twisted. But I just share this with you so that you can see, in our country, everybody keeps thinking, oh, this can't happen. Oh, America, America, America. They don't really understand that things are happening right before our eyes, slowly. The ties are unraveling. The order is shifting. Nobody wants to deal with them Gentiles no more. Everybody is sick of them. There's not going to be no place on earth they can go. And they need to understand that. They've they've mistreated people, they've mistreated nations, they've knocked off nations, they've caused all kinds of problems in nations amongst the people to make it almost impossible to rule over those people. They've kept nations and people poor. So I mean, the world is tired. People can only take so much. And so what you see happening now is people trying to figure out how they're going to exclude the pirates of the earth. And because we live in the belly of the beast with the pirates, we have to pay attention to what's happening because it is going to impact us. Whatever policies, laws, things that they do, we have to deal with the retaliation of those things. We are collateral damage. In 2018, Xi and Ramaphosa unveiled the first ever BAIC vehicle assembled on African soil via video link. In celebration of South Africa hosting the 15th BRICS Summit, the BAIC Group South Africa plant is set to realize the localized production of BAIC's own brands in 2023. Noting he has witnessed the vigorous growth of China-South Africa relations, Xi, on his fourth state visit to South Africa, said that he hopes both countries will continue their friendship and deepen cooperation. The last three state visits made by Xi to South Africa were in 2013, 2015, 2018. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and South Africa. In the past 25 years, the bilateral relationship has been promoted from being a partnership to a strategic partnership, and then to a comprehensive strategic partnership. So they've been working behind the scenes to subvert Babylon. You can't blame nobody for not wanting to deal with Babylon. Shoot, we here in the belly and we tired of her. So I don't know why people are like, oh, you shouldn't feel like that. What? Everybody is tired of Babylon. Everybody. So I'm gonna go to the deepening cooperation. Noting bilateral relations are at a new starting point Xi said deepening cooperation and strengthening coordination is the common aspiration of the two countries and the task entrusted by the Times. In the first half of 2023, bilateral trade between China and South Africa reached 28.25 billion, up 11.7% year on year, said Xu Yuding, a spokesperson of the Ministry of Commerce, adding that China has maintained its position as South Africa's largest trading partner for 14 consecutive years, while South Africa has been China's largest trading partner in Africa for 13 consecutive years. So just pay attention. If they're going to strengthen that, that's just a sign. If you're going to strengthen with them, it means you got to leave somebody else hanging. And that's what's going on. All right, so I'm going to go to the next story. So the next story is about South Africa and China signing 11 agreements to seal collaboration efforts. So whenever this thing comes up, it's so slow. So this story is on Microsoft Start, but it originally was posted on, let me see, I don't know which site. Oh my gosh, it's so slow. Okay, here it is. Oh geez, I don't know what's happening. Oh, there it is. I was trying to show you the, oh, so it says Eyewitness News, and it was posted on yesterday. So it says this, okay, it is just really gonna restart. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, so it says the South African government has signed 11 memorandums of understanding with the People's Republic of China. These agreements are to ensure greater collaboration between the two countries in trade, energy, higher education, and international diplomacy. The signing ceremony took place at the Union Buildings on Wednesday during the official state visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping. In his remarks of the Union Building at the Union Buildings, Jinping said China supports South Africa's efforts to become a major player in geopolitics and trade. Jinping added that China looked forward to accessing more of South Africa's imports. President Ramaphosa said there is an understanding between the two countries to narrow the trade deficit, which leans proportionately in favor of China. So the dragon is flexing to become the new global power. And again, no Western countries are at the table. So this is a huge deal, whether we understand it or not. It's not like the G7 and the G20 and all these other nations, these Gentile nations that get to make decisions for the whole world. These other nations are creating their own vehicles so that they can do what they need to do for what's in their best interest. Again, understand, I know all the kings going to give their power to the beast, and it's just part of the movie that we're watching. So, and that one of the ways to do so is ensuring greater market access for value-added South African goods that can be exported to the South African market. We are also very delighted that China has agreed to reopen the export of beef to China. This is going to give a huge boost to our agricultural sector. Ramaphosa and Jinping are expected to co-chair the China-Africa Roundtable discussions during the BRICS summit. All right. So this is another story. It's about Ethiopia. And this is on the ECOFIN agency's website. It came out on yesterday as well. So it says Ethiopia and United Arab Emirates signed 17 agreements enhancing cooperation in various fields. So on August 18th, Ethiopia and the United Arab Emirates signed 17 cooperation agreements covering various fields. The agreements were signed during the visit of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and president of the United Arab Emirates to Addis Ababa. One of the agreements paves the way for cooperation between Abu Dhabi ports and Ethiopian Investment Holdings, one of Africa's largest sovereign wealth funds, with over $150 billion in assets under management. Another was signed between Omolat Security Printing, the company responsible for printing the Emirati dirham, and the National Bank of Ethiopia. It aims at mutual collaboration in customs matters, we learn. Until now, Ethiopian birds were printed in Europe by the British company De La Rue. Wow, didn't realize that. One other agreement provides the exchange of expertise in governance and technological cooperation between the two countries, while others cover partnerships between the Ethiopian Investment Commission and the Federations of Chambers of Commerce of the Emirates of Sharjah and Abu Dhabi, as well as financial alliances between Etihad Credit Insurance, the UAE's national credit insurer, and the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia. Agriculture is not left out. The MOU between Aldara Group, specialized in agro industry, and the Ethiopian Investment Commission. Last but not least, the agreements also pave the way for future collaboration between DP World's FZE, a company operating in maritime cargo handling of the Ethiopian Ministry of Transport and Logistics, to boost the logistics sector in landlocked Ethiopia. Climate and the fight against terrorism also feature prominently in the agreement signed. So that just says to me that there are some of the kings that are going to give their power to the beast too. So everybody's, and this is why I say, while we are watching these things in real time for present truth, we understand, or we should understand, that biblical prophecy is unfolding. So while we see these things and we're preparing for how they're going to impact us physically until we leave here, understand that these things must also take place. So it says the growing relationship between our two countries is rooted in deep mutual respect and a shared vision for mutual progress. We will continue to work together in pursuit of sustainable development, said Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy, who presided over the signing ceremony with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. All right. So I just wanted to share this with you because they are talking about all sorts of things, getting away from dealing with Gentile heathen nations, their oppressors. Okay, so this article is from stripes.com. It is about P. Daddy denounces sanctions on Russia. Get out of here. During his speech for a South Africa Economic Summit. So this is Stars and Stripes is an American military magazine. And so you will hear the lack of enthusiasm. I'm going to just say that in the tone of this article. See, the other two was like, oh yeah, we doing this, they're doing that, and it's such a good thing. This one right here is not gonna be the same. They ain't gonna have the same energy. Okay, so it says P Daddy took multiple shots at the West on the opening day of an economic summit in South Africa using a pre recorded speech that was aired on giant screens to Tuesday to rail at what he called illegitimate sanctions on his country and threatened to cut off Ukraine's grain exports permanently. Putin, the subject of international criminal court arrest warrant related to the war in Ukraine, did not travel to Johannesburg for the summit of the BRICS group of emerging economies. So then you see now they've been talking about BRICS this whole time, but this is the first time that they mentioned it. They didn't call it BRICS at the beginning because they are excluded. So it's really not important to them. It's important to watch, but it's really not important because they're not included. They're not benefiting from it. Instead, he plans to participate remotely in the 3-day meeting of the bloc that encompasses Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. His 17-minute speech, recorded in advance, centered on the war in Ukraine and Russia's relationship with the West, even though South African officials had said East West frictions should not dominate the first in person BRICS summit since before the Kuchiramba pandemic, and hoped to guide the conversation away from the deteriorating geopolitical climate. Sitting at a desk with the white notebook in front of him and a Russian flag behind him, P. Daddy said a wartime deal to facilitate Ukrainian grain shipments that is critical for the world's food supply would not resume until his conditions, the easing of restrictions on Russian food and agricultural products, are met. The West's attempts to punish and isolate Russia financially for sending troops into Ukraine and an illegitimate sanctions practice and illegal freezing of assets of sovereign states, which essentially amounts to them trampling upon all basic norms and rules of free trade, the Russian leader asserted. Moscow pulled out of the Black Sea Grain Initiative in July and stepped up drone and missile attacks on the city of Odessa in southern Ukraine, home of one of the ports that controlled passage agreement covered. The initiative was created with helping reduce soaring prices of wheat, vegetable oil, and other global food commodities. Putin maintained that even with Russian exports of grain and fertilizer being deliberately obstructed, his country has the capacity to replace Ukraine in grain, both commercially and in free aid to needy countries, according to the official translation of his speech at the summit. The US and other Western nations have not directly targeted Russian agricultural exports, but moves to restrict Russia's access to international financial payment systems under some sanctions have made it difficult for the country to get food, fertilizer, and other products to market. With these facts in mind, July 18th, we have refused to extend the so called deal, Putin said. We will be ready to get back to it, but only if all the obligations to the Russian side are truly fulfilled. Chinese President Xi Jinping also brought an air of confrontation to the Johannesburg summit, saying in a speech read on his behalf by a Chinese government minister, minutes after Putin's address, that some country obsessed with maintaining its hegemony has gone out of its way to cripple the emerging markets and developing countries. I wonder who that is. I wonder who they talking about. Whoever is developing fast becomes its target of containment. Whoever is catching up becomes its target of obstructions. Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao said while delivering Xi's speech. Now, we could take something from this, Black people. Now, I've always said this, but other people in the world, so it just goes to show you that other people in the world also see what we've been enduring, which is why I always say they learn from us. Everybody studies us. And everybody watches us, although nobody will say, oh yeah, they oppress those people, because every time they figure out a way to get out of something, they come up with a new plan. That's why they keep looking at us all the time. That's why they need to keep the spotlight on us all the time. So it says, whoever is developing fast become its target of containment. And that could be us. You know, you look at all the things that we've been through, we still here. We turning up, we twerking, we doing all kinds of stuff we ain't got no business doing, but we here. They push us out, they flood us out, they burn us out, we still here. It's just like when we were in Egypt. No matter what they did, they cannot get rid of us because we are chosen people. And so the world has taken note of what Esau does and how Esau behaves. And so I think this little section here is reflective of how Esau operates. And so we should always keep that close to the vest when we make plans to do what it is that we're doing. It was a clear reference to the United States and the growing economic friction between the US and China. Xi is in South Africa for the summit and met with South African President Ramaphosa earlier Tuesday. He didn't attend the opening day business forum where the other three BRICS leaders gave their addresses in person, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov represented his country. No reason was given for the Chinese leader's absence. However, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da, oh Lord, I thought I was finished saying his name, Luiz Silva, I'm just going to say that, forgive me, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Ramaphosa were all expected to meet over dinner at a luxury estate in suburban Johannesburg. P. Daddy also planned to take part virtually, officials said. The leaders were expected to discuss the top agenda point for the 3-day summit, a possible expansion of BRICS. They are scheduled to reconvene for the summit's main day of talks on Wednesday, which was yesterday. The 5 BRICS countries are already home to 40% of the world's population. So do you hear that? 40%. And responsible for more than 30% of global economic output, and more than 20 nations have applied to join, according to South African officials, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, and Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi plan to attend the summit. The 5 current countries will have to agree on the criteria for new members before any countries are admitted, but a bigger BRICS is seen as a policy favored by China and Russia amid those deteriorating relationships with the West. So as you can see, these people ain't playing. Whatever they do, you can expect the West to be petty and messy, because that's what they are. They're like juveniles. You confront them, they do everything. They do all the bad stuff, and as soon as you catch them and confront them, they cry and cry the victim, and then start doing stuff to deflect. So, in the big scheme of things, the things that just means more distractions for us. But while they're distracting from the coming decline and fall of the West and America, we have to be prepared. So I'm not going to read any more of this. I will include it in the description. There's another story. I'm not going to read it either, but it just talks about BRICS as well. So it says, why the BRICS aren't crumbling in Africa. Despite Russia's decline and China's economic woes, the idea of a non-dollarized economy has strong appeal across the continent. So this is the Africa brief from the Foreign Policy magazine, foreignpolicy.com. I will include it in the description. It's a really good read, and it's from a non-European, non-Gentile perspective. So you get to see how the rest of the world thinks about this country in the West and what's been done and what they're doing to separate themselves from everybody else. So it's really cool. The last thing that I want to share with you is that's not it. This video. So check this out because it talks about how China has dumped $481 billion in U.S. bonds last month unexpectedly to buy gold. So everybody in the world is trying to get a currency that's backed by gold. Everybody's getting as much gold as they can because they understand the whole world's economy is going to collapse. It's not just going to be America, it's going to be everybody's. But it's going to be a chain reaction because of globalization, everybody will be impacted. And so this is why we need to prepare. So check out this video and then I'm going to end my video.
On August 15th, according to the latest International Capital Flow report released by the U.S. Department of the Treasury, at least 14 countries globally engaged in the divestment of U.S. Treasury bonds in June. Notably, China, Belgium, Luxembourg, India, Brazil, Singapore, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, the United Arab Emirates, Thailand, the Philippines, Italy, and Vietnam were among the countries that engaged in varying degrees of U.S. bond divestment. This trend has been observed among several oil-producing nations as well. After a collective sale of U.S. Treasury bonds in May, both Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer, and the United Arab Emirates, another significant oil exporter, continued their U.S. bond divestment in June. Saudi Arabia, in particular, has sold a total of $8.1 billion worth of U.S. Treasury bonds over 3 consecutive months from April to June. Its U.S. bond holdings have declined from a peak of $184.4 billion 2 years ago to a low of $108.1 billion, marking a substantial net divestment of $76.3 billion and a cumulative net divestment ratio of over 41%. Concurrently, the United Arab Emirates, after divesting $1.2 billion of U.S. Treasury bonds in May, sold an additional $3.8 billion in June. This collective movement of major oil-producing nations highlights a global surge in U.S. Treasury bond divestment and serves as a key signal of the ongoing de-dollarization efforts. The recently released International Capital Flow report from the U.S. Department of the Treasury reveals that in June, the 3 major BRICS countries, China, India, and Brazil, collectively engaged in the divestment of U.S. Treasury bonds. Furthermore, as of August 16th, there are multiple indications suggesting that the BRICS nations are exploring the creation of a new currency anchored to physical gold. Over 40 countries are aspiring to join the ranks of the BRICS nations, including major oil exporting countries like Saudi Arabia. The divestment actions of the BRICS nations and oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia underscore the growing global efforts to strategically position themselves away from the U.S. dollar. Given that the combined GDP of the BRICS nations accounts for roughly a quarter of the global economy, and with increasing interest in joining the BRICS bloc and supporting a gold-backed currency, it is anticipated that at least 1/3 of global economic transactions could involve this new currency in the future. This would particularly impact transactions in crucial sectors like global oil trade. Such a shift would directly challenge the foundation of the U.S. economy, primarily the petrodollar system and the reliance on U.S. Treasury bonds. Recent statements from former U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve officials indicate that the trend of moving away from the U.S. dollar in global oil trade is intensifying. Notably, India, the world's 3rd largest crude oil importer, has begun using the Chinese yuan for purchasing international oil, challenging the dominance of the petrodollar and elevating the status of the petro-yuan. Furthermore, the U.S. insistence on Saudi Arabia settling oil exports to China in dollars rather than yuan reflects the tenacity of the U.S. dollar's hegemony. Nevertheless, Saudi Arabia's significant U.S. Treasury divestment and reports of using yuan for certain oil transactions indicate a potential shift in its stance. Saudi Arabia has also indicated its intention to end its petrodollar agreement with us and pivot its focus toward Eastern economic and trade partnerships, potentially aligning with the BRICS nations and supporting a gold-backed currency. This presents challenges to the U.S. efforts to maintain the petrodollar and U.S. Treasury bond status quo, Analysts speculate that Saudi Arabia might even completely divest from U.S. treasuries. As the second largest holder of U.S. treasuries, China divested an additional $11.3 billion U.S. treasuries in June, reducing its holdings to $835.4 billion, the lowest since June 2009. In the second quarter of this year alone, China divested a total of $33.9 billion in U.S. treasuries. Since April of the previous year, China has maintained U.S. Treasury holdings below the trillion-dollar mark for 15 consecutive months. From October of the previous year, this extended to 9 months, with holdings below $900 billion. Out of the 19 months from December 2021 to June of this year, China engaged in U.S. Treasury divestment for 17 months, deviating from its typical pattern of holding, comparing the current situation to November 2013, when China held approximately $1.31 trillion. In U.S. Treasuries, the cumulative net divestment of $481.3 billion represents a substantial 37% decrease in holdings. This divestment figure is only second to the total U.S. Treasury holdings of the third largest holder, the United Kingdom, and surpasses the holdings of the fourth largest holder, Belgium, by an additional $148.9 billion. China has indeed become the largest international seller of U.S. Treasury bonds. The latest deficit report from the U.S. Department of the Treasury, published in August, reveals that in the first 10 months of the 2023 fiscal year ending in July, the federal budget deficit reached $1.61 trillion, more than double the figure for the same period last year. For the current fiscal year, U.S. federal revenue has decreased by 10%, reaching approximately $3.7 trillion, while expenditures have grown by 10%, amounting to $5.3 trillion. It is projected that the total federal deficit of the United States will continue to rise by the end of the 2023 fiscal year. This situation, coupled with the continuous divestment of U.S. Treasury bonds by global central banks, sheds light on the rationale behind Fitch's recent urgent downgrade of the U.S. Treasury bond credit rating to AA+. The agency has stated that the fiscal condition of the United States is deteriorating. Despite criticisms from officials like U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen, the concrete figures underscore the trajectory towards a default due to the unsustainable debt pattern of the United States in the face of persistent deficit. Fitch also raises concerns about the governance capacity of the United States. As the Federal Reserve's high interest rate policy drives up the cost of U.S. Treasury bonds, the United States faces escalating challenges to its governance and financial stability. Analyst Magwanya points out that the credit rating downgrade of the United States highlights the growing debt level and concerns about debt sustainability. With increasing debt, it is becoming more challenging for U.S. Treasury bonds to regain an AAA rating, which in turn affects the U.S.'s borrowing capacity. Furthermore, the interest cost of the $32.7 trillion debt has risen by 40% over the past year, making interest payments on the debt one of the largest federal expenditures. Simultaneously, the U.S. debt-based economic model finds itself in a dilemma. Even if the Federal Reserve were to lower interest rates, the trend of U.S. Treasury bond divestment seems difficult to reverse. The U.S. has long promoted the monetization of U.S. Treasury bonds and the weaponization of the U.S. dollar, which has diminished the attractiveness of U.S. Treasury bonds. Should the Federal Reserve implement future interest rate cuts and initiate a quantitative easing money printing strategy in U.S. dollars, potentially driving rates down to zero or even negative, countries holding U.S. Treasury bonds might find themselves required to make payments to the U.S. This is a key driver behind the ongoing divestment of U.S. Treasury bonds by many countries as they shift towards alternative assets like gold. Data from the World Gold Council reveals that global central bank gold purchases reached 1,136 tons in 2022, maintaining a high level of 387 tons in the first half of this year, marking a historic high. In the first half of this year, China's total gold imports reached 792 tons, a substantial increase of 400 tons. From 2017 to June of this year, China procured 6,927 tons of gold from international markets, indicating an active accumulation of gold reserves. With China's gold reserves accounting for approximately 4.1% of its foreign reserves, there is potential for gold to substitute for U.S. Treasury bonds, Predictions suggest that China could divest over $830 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds in exchange for around 13,000 tons of gold reserves, making it the world's largest gold reserve holder. As the world's largest goods importer and exporter, China's increased gold reserves could drive the broader use of gold in global economic and trade transactions, thereby accelerating the process of de-dollarization. This shift would weaken the U.S.'s dominance and potentially destabilize the U.S. debt-based economic model. In conclusion, the collective divestment of U.S. Treasury bonds by multiple nations, the augmentation of gold reserves, and the accelerating trend towards de-dollarization collectively underscore the challenges being posed to the economic and financial hegemony of the United States.
All right. So, y'all got that? We is in deep doo doo. And there's no way out, really. It's just a matter of time before the cards all fall. So, while your money is still worth something, buy as much stuff as you can. If you have money to invest in gold and silver, that's what everybody else doing. So I would do it too. Um, you may want to consider investing in other currencies, other national currencies, to protect yourself as the dollar is becomes worthless. Um, Stock up on things because every day the prices of stuff goes up. Inflation is out of this world. Like everything is so expensive. Every time I go to the grocery store, I look for stuff that's on sale first, but it's like nothing is going down. Everything, the price of everything is going up. So it's not going to change. And then just the things that you need to survive. Continue to think about primitive living. What can you live without, and what do you need? And buy those things that you will need. I'm going to keep telling you food and water, non-perishable things. Um, I'm just a firm believer in having those tangible things on your person, uh, because the time is coming. Like, in 1 hour, Babylon is going to fall. 1 hour. So, whenever that moment hits, you want to have everything that you need in your home, on your person, so that you don't have to be outside in the chaos. You're not one of those people because you only keep a few days worth of food in your house, or you got small kids and you didn't prepare, you weren't paying attention to what's happening. All this information is out in the public. It's on the internet. Everybody got a cell phone. Nobody used their cell phone for good. Everybody used it for watching stupid stuff. People are still watching the mainstream media, not paying attention to what's happening, getting lied to, having their attention refocused to things. Even all these fires, while it is an important story, it's really a distraction. There's too many of them for it to even be real at this point. It's like, what is happening? Um, it's so much stuff happening at one time that people are going to miss the fall. So, because I don't know, I have a vested interest. Let me say that, to know all these different things and to keep these pieces together. I want you to know what's coming before it happens. So nobody will be surprised that, the day that the dollar collapses, the day that the global economy fails, the day that, something kicks off and it's a chain reaction, you are not caught off guard and unaware. So, one of the things that I'm going to do this week is I'm going to buy me a hand pump, a pump kit, a well pump kit, so that if there's no water, if there's an EMP strike, or there's, we have rolling power outages, because that's coming with the new thing that they're going to order, where we're forced to hide because of the weather, or we can't leave our houses because of the weather thing, events. We could have rolling power outages like they do in South Africa and some of the other countries. We could be without water, and it could be a real inconvenience. So I'm going to invest in me a pump where I can pump water out of the ground, and I'm going to hide it someplace where nobody can find it. So, that is something that I'm working on. But I have all kinds of things in my head that I'm thinking about. But in this hour, it's not necessarily easy to store a bunch of water in your house. And then because you may live with people who are not necessarily preparedness minded, and so to them, they see preparation as just stuff stored places and an inconvenience. Everybody considers something an inconvenience until they need it. Everybody hates preparedness until somebody needs to be prepared. It's just like, even with FEMA and some of these other disaster preparedness agencies, they don't just have stuff. I mean, they spend years going over stuff, doing modeling, buying stuff and putting it away and planning for this event and that event. If this happens, this is what we need to do. This is how we need to mobilize. People don't just say, "Oh, well, it's a hurricane hit today. Let's go to Publix and buy up all their water." I mean, it's just not possible. Let's get batteries. Let's go, buy ration food today. You have to plan for disaster. You plan for bad times. You plan in advance and acquire all the things that you need so that when the bad times come, all you have to do is go in your garage and pull out whatever it is you need. All you have to do is go into your closet or pull something from underneath your bed or out of a crack where the best stuff is hidden in cracks. So continue to prepare, continue to prep. There are a lot of good prepping websites, a lot of good checklists. Even if you start with hurricane preparedness checklist and go to FEMA, Homeland Security, everybody's got something for you to start with if you've never started prepping or you've been slacking. It's no time to slack. Like, you need to be about it. You see these countries making money moves. They're making moves based on their nation's interest or their political interest, in addition to they also work for the beast. But let's leave the beast part out of it. Practically and naturally speaking, these people are planning for disaster. They understand what's coming. China's been warning their people for 3 years to prepare and put back food. They told them at the beginning of the pandemic they should have a year's worth of food stored in their houses. I don't know whether people did it, but they told their people. If their people didn't listen, oh well, it's on them. Same with, people here. The government has been telling people to put back stuff quietly and not enough, but they have told you winter is coming. It's going to be a dark winter. Oh yeah, it's going to be a dark winter. It's going to be dark in more than one way. It's going to be cold and dark because we're going to have less food. We're probably going to be experiencing rolling blackouts if we don't have an EMP strike altogether, some type of cyber attack. You got to plan for everything. And I know it's exhausting. I know it's tiring, but you must do it. Sitting around saying, God got me, you are crazy. I realize the Most High um, will protect us, but He also tells you to have oil for your lamp. Why? So that you won't run out. You need extra oil. He also tells you to make sure you have food for the 7 years of famine, put back in your good years, put back for the bad years. Consider this year a good year because nothing has happened. Food may be a little more expensive, but it's still affordable. The day is coming where your loaf of bread gonna be worth a day's salary. You might pay $100 for a loaf of bread, or whatever your salary is, depending on how much you earn. You may not be able to afford enough food for yourself, let alone your family if you got children and things. So learn how to stock up, learn how to prepare. Get those things that you need in your house so that when things happen and when that 1 hour comes, you are ready because it's going to be chaotic. And, all we'll be doing is shaking our head, wishing people had listened to us. At that point, I'm going to just turn off my TV and phone and just pray because that's all you're going to be able to do for people at that point. This country is not telling anybody anything because they're not prepared for the backlash. And in some regard, I think they want to catch people off guard and unaware because they need to get rid of some people. So, hey, it's going to be survival of the smartest and the fittest. A lot of people ain't going to make it. A lot of our people ain't going to make it because they are not fit and they are not smart. Um, I'm just going to keep it a buck. And they don't know the Most High. So that's a triple whammy. That's three strikes. You can be out of shape. You can be not that bright. Y'all can use anybody. But if you don't know him, you don't have a connection with him, and he's been knocking on the door and you haven't been opening that door up and listening to him, you're on your own. So come into a relationship with the Most High now while you still can and ask for spiritual discernment so he can guide you on what you need to do, where you need to go, and how to navigate these times. All right, I'm done because this video is long enough. I'm sorry it's been so long, but I just didn't want to do a whole bunch of videos on each one of these different topics. I just wanted to do it all together and have like a BRICS break. So this is the end of the BRICS break. If you like this type of content, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification so that you can get notified every time I upload new content as long as I can. Consider following me on Rumble and Odyssey. Links are in the description. Also on social media on Instagram and Facebook. I do not post there regularly. I only post there in an event of an emergency or I'm locked out of my YouTube channel because that's my primary mode. I do have an address for Substack. I will not use it until I'm locked out of everything because that will be a way that I can share things with you until I cannot. Consider supporting the channel. Don't have any affiliates. I'm not linked to anything. I'm just a one person show doing this. So if you like this content and you'd like to bless me, I accept blessings. Thank you. And if you have blessed me in the past, I thank you and appreciate it so much because I know you could be doing anything with your money. So if you take the time to bless me, I really do appreciate it. Lastly, continue to prep, continue to pray, continue to seek the Most High, ask for forgiveness of sins, sins of commission and sins of omission. Continue to cry out to the Most High and pray over the awakening so that this old kingdom can leave and the new kingdom can come because I'm exhausted. I'm literally tired. I can't, it's Thursday. I don't even know what's going to happen Friday. I didn't talk about the Trump stuff. I didn't talk about any of the other stuff that's going on. It is so much. It is too much. It's almost overwhelming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go outside and work in my garden. I'm going to get me some vitamin D. I'm going to be blackety black, get me some sun, drink me some water. I'm fasting this week, so all I'm doing is water and broth, liquids. I'm not doing any food because I need some answers about some things. I need some answers about some people. I need some answers about some direction. And I need to pray for our people because our people are not where they should be. So with that said, y'all, love y'all to pieces. Thank you for staying around to the end of the video if you were able to stay or if you're catching the um, end if you had to chop it up because it's just too long for you. Thank you for listening and paying attention and heeding the call because it's really important that we stay on top of these things. In 1 hour, Babylon is going to fall. And we live in Babylon, so you need to pay attention. All right, y'all. This is Molly K, and I'm out.